So, hi everyone. Welcome to January's Fireside Chats. I'm Candice. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm here to host tonight's session on nutrition and skin cancer. Okay, so I work currently at Princess Margaret Cancer Center in Toronto, Ontario, and I've been an oncology dietitian for over 3 years now. My areas of practice currently are melanoma and skin cancers, allogeneic stem cell transplants, and primary brain tumors. And I work primarily in both inpatient and outpatient settings. So tonight's agenda will be, exploring the relationship between nutrition and cancer, how to build a healthy meal, and how to manage some common side effects from cancer or cancer treatment, and some common myths about nutrition and cancer. So our first topic, why is nutrition important? Well, getting enough nutrition is important because it's going to help us maintain our weight, our strength, and our energy levels. During cancer treatment, we don't want to gain too much weight, but we also don't want to lose any weight at all either. So being well nourished will help us to tolerate treatments and their potential side effects. It's also going to help our immune system to work at its full capacity and promote faster healing and recovery from the cancer treatment. And lastly, it's going to help with our quality of life, support our moods, and support our day-to-day functioning. But nutrition is a very complex topic, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. And there's no one food or one diet that can help treat cancer. You may have heard of certain terms like superfoods or a cancer diet floating around the internet, or you're hearing it from friends, family, social media, but this is all misinformation. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. Come to me, they're feeling confused, they're overwhelmed with all the information that they're reading online or that's given to them, and so oftentimes what happens is that they develop this negative relationship with food because they're just scared to eat, and sometimes they just end up removing so much from what they used to enjoy or so much from what they were eating before. And this leads to weight loss and some muscle loss. And that's something we ultimately don't want to happen during cancer treatment, because that can really impact how you can tolerate treatment and the severity of the side effects that might develop. So you're not alone when you're feeling like confused or overwhelmed with all the information that's coming at you. Moving on to this next section about nutrition essentials. So I know I talked about how there's no one diet or one food that can help treat cancer, but there are some nutrients that we do need to prioritize when we're going through cancer treatment. And that's our next slide, which is fluids or water. So staying hydrated, it's going to be really important during cancer and your cancer treatment, because we want to make sure that you're keeping your body functioning and all the cells inside as well, because water is the vehicle of, how all our cells move around our body and carry out its functions. And making sure you're not dehydrated is going to be really important because it comes with its own complications. And making sure you're staying hydrated is going to reduce treatment side effects. And it's also going to help flush your kidneys of all the medications you might be taking to support the treatment. You may also need more hydration because of certain side effects that happen during treatment, like diarrhea, vomiting, or having a fever. But on the flip side, you can also have a lower appetite, which makes you not consume enough liquids from food or from beverages. So that's why hydration is going to be really important to stay on top of. So just some hydration tips. Both beverages and food can help keep us hydrated. And these examples are like water, herbal teas, milk, plant-based milks, broth. And then some foods as well, which is like applesauce, yogurt, watermelon, celery, cucumbers. These foods have high water content, so they're good ways to also get some hydration as well. Everyone needs a different amount of fluids per day based on age, activity level. The amount of water that everyone needs, it depends on our age, or gender, activity levels, and our health status. But generally, we do want to aim for a certain amount of fluids per day, just to make sure that we're not dehydrating ourselves. And that goal is about 6 to 8 cups a day, which is about 1.5 to 2 liters from fluids alone. And 1 cup is equal to 250 mLs or milliliters, or 8 fluid ounces. Now, there are some foods that we do want to prioritize and limit, which are fluids with added sugars. So that's like your pops and sugar sweetened beverages like, frappuccinos and, smoothies with lots of added, sugars to it, not just the fruit, as well as caffeinated beverages. You can still have caffeine during cancer treatment. It's safe. It's just we don't want too much of it, right? Everything in moderation. And another type of fluid we do want to limit or avoid would be alcoholic beverages. And this would depend on the type of cancer you have or the cancer treatment you're receiving. So I do suggest talking to your healthcare team whether you can have alcohol during your treatment, whether to reduce it or avoid it altogether. And then lastly, the next tip would be to drink your fluids throughout the day for the best absorption. Because if you're gulping, a liter and a half all at once in the morning, your kidneys will be flushing it out of your system all at once, and you're really not going to be retaining any water. So you want to make sure you're spreading it out. And then our next nutrient would be protein. So protein has an important role in our body. It helps to build our immune system to keep it strong and fight its infections. It also helps to maintain our muscles and our strength levels and keep our bones strong. And it also promotes healing and recovery. So I want to ask the group what they think or what they know of high protein foods or beverages. So yeah, I heard nuts, cheese, meats, some veggies. Yes, so some veggies do have protein in it. I wouldn't consider it like a high protein option, but there's definitely some protein in some vegetables. Yeah, beans have proteins. That includes kidney beans, black beans, pinto beans. Yeah, and that's a plant-based source of protein. Great. So I heard a lot of these listed here. And here I have like more of a extensive list of both like animal-based proteins and plant-based proteins. So, we heard the meat, the poultry, fish, and shellfish is also an example of protein, like shrimp. Um, then we have your legumes, which I heard lentils and black beans and red kidney beans. Chickpeas as well is another one. We heard nuts and seeds. So it's nuts and seeds and their butters too. So a peanut butter, a natural peanut butter, an almond butter, cashew butter also counts as a high protein option. Seeds, I think seeds, there's a lot of options in that category too. We have your pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, hemp seeds. Those are good examples. Next is soy. So we have tofu, soy milk, soybeans, and edamame. Is anyone not familiar with edamame? So we're all familiar with edamame. Those are like those green pea pods looking things that you get in like Japanese restaurants that are sometimes salted. Those are young soybeans, and that's a great source of protein too. And then here I have listed enriched plant-based milks. And the reason why it says enriched plant-based milks is because compared to milks like cow's milk or soy milk that are naturally high in protein, other plant-based milks like almond or cashew milk or oat milk don't have naturally high sources of protein. For a cup, it's probably like a gram or less, versus with soy milk or milk, you have about 7 to 9 grams of protein per cup. So quite a difference. But now on the market, there are a lot of enriched plant-based milks where they take almond or cashew milk and add a source of protein in it, either through pea protein or soy protein. Next is eggs and egg whites. Then you have your dairy products like milk, cheese, yogurts, and skim milk powder. And then your non-food sources like protein powders, which can come in the form of whey, hemp, soy, or pea. And then also pre-made protein shakes. Some protein tips. So just some suggestions on how to get some more protein in your diet. It could be, topping salads with nuts and seeds, edamame or dried peas or chickpeas. Whenever you're making eggs, add some extra egg whites to it or do 1-to-1. Grate cheese, add cottage cheese or ricotta cheese to salads, vegetables, and pastas. And if you're up for making like a homemade dip for fruits, vegetables, or chips, you can make the dip using Greek or Icelandic yogurt, which can make the dip much more high protein compared to your typical like ranch dressing dip. And it's very common. I hear patients who just kind of want to snack on something and they just choose fruit. But I feel like pairing a fruit with a protein source can make that snack much more balanced and much more nutritious. And so instead of having fruit on its own, have it with some yogurt or some cottage cheese as well. And then lastly, it works kind of similar to protein powder, but skim milk powder can be quite versatile. You can add it to soups to make it a cream soup high in protein, coffee and lattes, and hot chocolate. Our next nutrient, which is calories. So calories, the role of calories is to help maintain our weight. Like I said earlier, we don't want patients to gain too much weight during treatment and we don't want them to lose weight. So when it comes to weight gain, that's when you're having too much calories. And when you lose weight, you're having too little calories. Calories help to provide energy for our body to function. All our cells in our body need some sort of energy. And calories can come from carbohydrates, so your starches, your fruits, your whole grains, protein, so the protein foods we just talked about, and fat. They all provide a source of calories. But fat is something that gives us the most calories for the same amount. So, for example, a gram of fat can give us 9 calories, whereas a gram of carbohydrates or protein gives us 4 calories. So, with that, typically foods that are high in calories are high in fat. It doesn't make them bad, it just means they just offer more calories for the amount that you eat. And these are some examples here of some high calorie foods: avocados and eggs, your nuts and seeds, salad dressings, butter, ghee, vegetable oils, sauces, spreads, and gravies, table cream or whipping cream, condensed milk, soy and almond creamers, soy whipping cream, coconut milk, and coconut cream. These are all ways to get some extra calories, especially if you're having a low appetite, you're not eating very much, but you really want to optimize what you are eating so that you get the most calories every bite you take. So next here I have nutrition supplement drinks. I hear that all the time. I hear it's too heavy. I hear it's too thick. I hear it's too sweet. So you're not alone in that. These products are all those things. And especially, I'm not sure who was talking the first time, but they mentioned they had some taste changes. Taste changes are very common during cancer treatment. So patients are sometimes just more sensitive as well to these sweet tastes. And even like textures as well. So someone who's not going through cancer treatment might think these are very enjoyable and have no problem drinking them, but it's very different from someone who's experiencing taste changes. But these products do have a role in nutrition, especially if you're really struggling to get enough calories and protein from your food. They're convenient, they're easy to take on the go, they can be very concentrated. So I don't like to say that they're a meal replacer, but some of them are very high calorie and protein where they actually are equivalent to a meal or to a small meal. And so that's why they have a really important role when you're trying to optimize your nutrition. But I think the ultimate goal is still, especially as a dietitian, I do want patients to have or focus more on whole foods. So I do tell them to drink these products between meals so they don't get too full and not have, some real food instead. And some ways to manage like the thickness, the sweetness, or like the heaviness. Well, the sweetness and the thickness, you could add ice, milk, or water to help thin it out and also reduce the sweetness. And for the thickness, I think it can help. Sorry, the heaviness. I feel like thinning it out and also maybe reducing the portion size could just help you feel less full. So perhaps just splitting it in 2 servings and having, let's say, half a bottle in the morning and half of the bottle at night. So you're still getting a full bottle, but you're just splitting it up so you're not feeling so full from it. These products can also be very versatile as well. You can add them to cereals, whether it's hot cereals or cold cereals. You can add them to coffees as a creamer, milkshakes or smoothies as the base. Because they come in a lot of flavors, they can be helpful in a lot of different areas. But I think one that is perhaps like unflavored, which I don't have a picture of, can be probably the most versatile as well in like cooking or adding to things. An easy way also, if you're finding difficulty even keeping up with these products to help with your nutrition, is to take them as a med pass or taking them with medications instead of water and juice. The only thing I want to note is that you always want to discuss this with the pharmacy because some of these products do have added vitamins and minerals. So some medications shouldn't be taken with, bigger doses of vitamins and minerals or not with food. So it's always good to just make sure with the pharmacist, like you can still take this for medications. And then I've just listed some popular brands of these products. Like we heard Ensure, but there's also Boost, Resource, 2Cal, Glucerna, which is a reduced carbohydrate product for people with diabetes. And then there's a product called Sperry, which is a pretty new product in the last several years compared to the veterans of the area like Ensure and Boost. And Sperry is a more of a special product because it's fully plant-based and it's non-dairy and non-soy as well. So it does appeal to a certain demographic of patients as well that are interested in having a plant-based product. And then also, we don't have to go to brand name. We can definitely go to store brands because they have their own versions of these products. So I always say the best product would be the product that will encourage you to drink it. And that could be anything that just appeals to you and tastes good to you. But if you are choosing between two products, I would suggest choosing one that's higher in protein and moderate to high calories as well. All right, so we're moving on to building a healthy meal. So when building a healthy meal, it really comes down to balance. And Health Canada does advise us to try to follow balanced eating. And to help visualize or help guide our meals, they've given this picture here on the right called the plate model. And what it is you want to try to fill your meal with half of vegetables and fruit because vegetables and fruit provides us with the bulk of our vitamins and minerals in our diet. It also provides us fiber, and fiber is very important in our diet because it helps us to, one, feel full and satisfied for longer periods. But it also helps to regulate our bowel movements, our blood sugars, our cholesterol levels. And there are actually some early studies to show that a high fiber diet may be linked to better response rates of immunotherapy with melanoma patients. So a high fiber diet is very key in balanced eating, lots of great benefits. And so the next quarter of our plate would be our whole grains. And this is where I would add potatoes and corn, even though they're considered vegetables. And that's because they act more like a starch. So when you're eating potatoes and corn, definitely visualize just having a portion size that's a quarter or half of the serving of vegetables and fruit that you're having. Whole grains give us B vitamins and also gives us that source of fiber as well. And so some examples of whole grains would be oats, bran, quinoa, brown rice, wild rice, whole grain pasta, whole wheat bread, those types of foods. Those are the whole grains. What's not a whole grain is the refined starches, so like your white rice, your white bread, and your white pastas. And lastly, we want to fill the last quarter of our plate with a protein source, whether it's plant-based or animal-based, because protein gives us all of our essential amino acids. And amino acids, they work as the building blocks of life and are the building blocks in our bodies as well. So they help us to repair cells, grow cells. They help create enzymes and hormones that are critical for daily living. So that's why protein is so important in our diet. And it also just acts like fiber where it keeps us full and satisfied for longer. Now, balanced eating overall just helps with portion control. And I did mention earlier in the presentation that we also want to avoid weight gain when it comes to cancer treatment, and portion control can be a big player in helping to manage that. And the plate model that we discussed earlier, it's helpful to visualize how to create meals, but it doesn't mean you always have to eat on a plate. It's a helpful guideline for, family style eating, buffet styles, soups, mixed dishes, sandwiches. You essentially just want to make sure that your whole grain portion and your protein portion are quite similar, and then your vegetable and fruit portion are kind of double that. Whether or not you're eating a small meal or a big meal, that's kind of the proportions you want to work with. And here on the right, we have some examples of how to, estimate portion sizes or serving sizes using your hands, which are always, with you. So when it comes to figuring out how much vegetables to eat or leafy greens, you can use your hands. So like two good handfuls is like an example of like a good amount of them, if it's like a big meal. And then next is like the palm of our hand. So the palm of our hand is good for things like meats, poultry, and fish. And it's about 3 ounces. And in terms of thickness, you could imagine like the thickness of a deck of cards, if you've heard that before, or like the thickness of like your index finger. Next thing that's really handy is your fist. So a fist is quite similar to 1 cup, the 250 milliliters or the 8 ounces. And this is good for things like rice, whole fruits, so like a whole apple, legumes, so like your beans, lentils, and chickpeas, milk or other liquids, pastas, and cereal. So our next section are common side effects. And I'm just going to list a few common ones, which are loss of or low appetite, fatigue, taste changes, nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, and sore mouth or throat. And so to begin with, the lack of or the low appetite. So like I was just mentioning before, it's like really making every bite count. And so you want to get the most bang out of your bite in terms of making sure every bite you're taking, even if it's just three, you want to make sure it's high protein, high calories. And that's by choosing the high calorie, high protein foods that we talked about. And now when you're eating these small amounts, because you have little to no appetite, we want to try to remind yourself to eat a bit more often than you're used to. So some of us might be used to our standard 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but this doesn't have to be followed when you're struggling to eat or get enough nutrition in. Whenever you're eating, eat what you can, whether it's 1, 2, 10 bites. Do what you can, take a break, come back to it in 2 hours and try again and see what you can do. But you want to try to aim to have more than just the 3 opportunities to eat a day. Try to aim for like 5 to 6, depending with what's manageable for you. And the thing sometimes too with little to no appetite, sometimes it can fluctuate. So sometimes you might have a really great appetite when you wake up in the morning. And so you want to take that opportunity to really capitalize on that time and have your largest meal then. And it could mean that you're eating like a really good breakfast and like just like nibbles throughout the day. But I think it's really important that you took advantage of that better appetite in the morning. Next is fatigue. And this happens so often and it's actually very hard to manage nutritionally. And it's unfortunate that that's the case. But I think a really big part of dealing with fatigue is having a good support circle because they can help with grocery shopping and cooking, just so that you can conserve your energy for when you really need it. And earlier too, I said, a lot of times patients feel guilty that, they can't make home cooked meals or they can't, get enough vegetables in. But again, that's not the priority at the time if you're really struggling to get enough in. And so opt for convenient foods like canned foods, canned beans, canned vegetables, canned soups, frozen foods, whether it's like a frozen TV dinner or frozen fruit, frozen vegetables, frozen meat, that's all fine, still very nutritious and even pre-made options. So a lot of grocery stores now have like pre-made dinners where they have like a whole dinner that's filled with like a protein, some mashed potatoes, and some vegetables. So opt for those because you don't have to worry about preparing a whole meal, and it's really just a one meal where you don't have to worry about wastage either. And the next thing is like choosing liquids as the form of nutrition rather than solids because it can help you conserve energy this way by reducing the amount of energy it takes to chew food. And the liquids that you're choosing, again, have to be kind of like the most value. And that can come in a vehicle like a smoothie, right? A good smoothie can have a good protein source from peanut butter, a Greek yogurt, protein powder, and then a calorie source, which is like some avocado, some ice cream, or even like a tablespoon of some neutral oil, like canola oil, could give you the calories. And then add in your flavors of choice, your fruits, your vegetables, chocolate chips, that sort of thing. But that's a good smoothie that can nourish you as well. And then same thing with soups. A good hearty soup instead of just broth and noodles. You can have a blended lentil soup for protein. You can have a nice chicken noodle soup with some good chunks of chicken in it, congee with an egg drop, and drizzle some sesame oil on top for some extra calories, that sort of thing. And then, of course, you have those nutrition supplement drinks that you can resort to as well. We also want to eat every few hours when we're dealing with fatigue, just to give your body this constant source of energy and fuel. If you're not going to be fueling your body, you're going to feel more fatigued, right? So you do want to try to get in a few bites or as much as you can at regular intervals during the day. And then lastly, we want to stay hydrated because you're already feeling pretty bad when you're fatigued with low energy. You don't want to worsen that by being dehydrated and then bringing on like other complications with dehydration. And then with taste changes, this can come in many different forms. We heard that things could be like too sweet, but they could also be, have a metallic taste, bland or no taste, too salty, bitter, and overall just everything's just tasting bad. So it's really hard when you're doing these taste changes because your expectation on what this food should taste like is just tasting completely different, and that could take a toll on your mental status as well. But some things to help manage taste changes. It won't cure it, it won't make it go away or make your taste come back, but it just won't worsen it in a way. So staying hydrated is really important. And that's because if you have a dry mouth, some of these tastes that are happening could actually feel or be worse. So making sure your mouth's always like hydrated and moist can be helpful. Taking sips throughout the day, taking sips between bites can be helpful for that to avoid the dry mouth. Next thing is keeping your mouth clean. So this could be brushing your teeth more often during the day, but especially before and after eating. In the same way, like a baking soda or salt mouthwash or club soda can work in the same way too, by using it before and after eating. Because before you eat, rinsing your mouth could help reset or keep things fresh before you tackle a meal or a snack. And then after your meal, it could also help get rid of any lasting residue of the food that you're eating so that during the day you just don't have that lingering bad taste in your mouth. And then some other tips would be just kind of exploring other foods, right? So you may have your favorites, but right now they're not tasting the right way. So exploring other foods, even exploring foods that you didn't like before, because your preferences may have changed. And so you might have new favorites right now. And it may take some time for your taste buds to come back. So by exploring new foods, you're kind of having this new rotation of favorites while you kind of retry your old favorites every 1 or 2 weeks. And then lastly, it helps to keep a list of foods that taste good to you, either a mental note or write it down, because it takes away some of the thinking and the distress of finding something that you want to eat. If you just have like a list of your go-tos or your staples that you have a rotation of. So our last section would be myth busting. So I'm just going to go through a few statements here. So our first statement, vitamin, mineral, herbal supplements are safe to take during treatment and are effective in treating cancer. What do we think about this statement? And do we think it's true or do we think it's false? So my intention behind this statement was that it's false. So yes, I always tell patients to speak with their healthcare team about the supplements that they're taking or are intending to take, because the concern here is that some of these supplements could interact with the medication or the cancer treatment that they're receiving, and either making them less effective or having these medications become more toxic in your body when you're taking them. Some examples are like I said, reishi mushrooms or turmeric supplements. These types of products aren't heavily or aren't regulated at all. And so some of the potential side effects aren't fully known. And so we just don't want to take that risk in terms of safety. And then also, because they're not heavily regulated, we don't know if they do interact with some medications or treatment. So a lot of these unknowns can be a big safety risk. But in the sense that some vitamin and mineral supplements could be safe for you would be things like vitamin D. Very common. We all need it, whether or not you're on cancer treatment or not. So that's something that could be taken during cancer treatment and should be talked about with your healthcare team. All right, second statement. All sources of sugar in the diet must be avoided because it will help the cancer to grow. Yeah, it's false. So the reason is sources of sugar can come from your fruits, your whole grains, like we talked about, your legumes. Those are all sources of sugar, but it also comes from candies and baked goods and pop. Those are also sources of sugar. It's really about choosing the right sources of these sugars. And so when it comes to these whole foods and balanced eating, we want these natural forms of sugar because they come with so many other benefits. Whereas we don't want the added sugars or ultra processed foods with high amounts of sugar because they don't provide those benefits either. They really just provide the calories, the sugar, and the fat, and even some salt too, which are things that don't support our well-being in high amounts. And you know, sugar does not cause cancer. It does not cause cancer to grow. In fact, our body relies and prefers sugar as our primary source of energy. Our healthy cells really need sugar. It's just the type of sugar, like I mentioned, that we want to choose from whole foods instead, natural sources. Okay, and then our last statement is organic foods are healthier and more nutrition than conventional or non-organic foods. So this is false. So organic foods are not more nutritious than non-organic foods. Organic foods really comes down to the farming practices. And so that really comes down to like the types of fertilizers and pesticides that they use compared to non-organic farming. But even non-organic farming, their practices are still safe for us to consume these types of products as well. It's just different types, and it's more of a personal choice rather than, I guess, a nutritious or safety choice when it comes to organic foods. That's it for the presentation. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.